Hi, welcome to Cooking with PRTC. I'm your host, Mark McRoy. Today, we've got a big surprise. Not so much a big surprise. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna make some meatloaf, have a stuffed pastry with spinach and feta cheese and onion topped with a tzatziki sauce, and a squash casserole. Should be delicious. Come on back and we'll get started. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back. We're gonna get started here with our meatloaf. A couple of things we're going to use: onions, bell peppers, salt, pepper, garlic, or as I like to call them, the essentials. And this again is the greatest time of the year as far as vegetables go. We got our Vidalia onions straight from down the street in Georgia. Best thing to ever come out of the state of Georgia is a Vidalia onion. Nice sharp knife. We're going to start off with about 3 pounds of hamburger. I don't know that we're going to use it all, but it's always better to have it than not need it, than need it and not have it. And I'm not cutting these up too small because I want the onion, get the good onion flavor. So we have a little onion chunks as opposed to diced. Okay. Now, drop that into our hamburger. And I did a mixture on the hamburger today. Usually, if I'm cooking hamburgers in the oven or grilling, I use a low fat, probably 90% meat and 10% fat, or even 93 and 7. This one I mixed up because I just didn't want it to be too dry. A couple of other things we're going to put in is some bell peppers. And we got these beautiful ones, and again, time of the year, I like to cook with as many fresh vegetables as we can. Cut the meat out. And using different bell peppers gives you a little bit different color. I like the flavors of these better too. The greens are great, but you know, the red ones are sweeter. And they are different. And the more you cook with them, the more your palate's going to get used to it, or to be able to differentiate the three. They're called stoplight peppers by some people, but the reds to me are just great. I was just talking to a friend of mine who gave me a recipe on homemade pimentos. Heck, I didn't even know there were homemade pimentos. I always used, when I make my pimento cheese, I use red peppers. And I'll grill them and then just put them into the cheese with the cream cheese, the sour cream, and some other odds and ends, mayonnaise, always Duke's of course, and mix them together. But anyway, this is a little device that's from Sharper Images, and I think it's just so cool because it saves you a bunch of time. It's a little noisy, but the cleanup's easy. You don't have to worry about cutting your finger. And everything is the same size. It's even got a measuring cup on it. So that is about 2 cups. So we're going to use about 2 cups of peppers. Put those in here. We got our meat. Little garlic salt, about a tablespoon, some kosher salt for our Jewish friends, and a little black pepper. There's nothing wrong with adding, if you like Texas Pete, or you like Tabasco, or you like jalapenos, put it in there. If you like breadcrumbs, I told some people I was doing this, you've got to have breadcrumbs. Like, no, not so much. Your mom might have had breadcrumbs, my mom didn't, so I'm not putting them in there. But again, you get all that beautiful flavor from the different peppers, and you get the different colors, and just get it in there and get it all broken up. One thing you want to make sure is, you want to fold it and break it up and get it all spread out evenly. We do not want to put too much in there. not put too much, but we don't want to break the meat down. If you knead it too much, it'll destroy the texture, and it just, I don't know, just takes away from it. By leaving it in one shape, if you will, it just keeps the beef from being all torn down. Beat your eggs up a little bit. And the great thing about the eggs, it'll also add some flavor, but it helps keep it all in one good, keeps it formed together. Okay. It's not as gross as it looks. It'll be fine. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is take this, about half of it, and form it into a nice little patty. Get this out of the way. Then we're going to take our casserole dish and we're going to put our hamburger in there. And we don't want to, if you're not being too creative, you can just put it in there and just pack it in and it's going to be fine. But we are going to lay that in about 1.5 inches, about 1 inch thick. Got all your vegetables in there. Now we're going to layer a couple pieces of ham. You got to make it fit, so fold it over. And you can get as inventive as you wish. If you want to use fresh deli ham, go buy some fresh deli ham. This is just the sandwich meat that you get. It's not going to lack for flavor, trust me. Okay. I like Swiss cheese. If you want Monterey Jack, you want cheddar, you want Asiago, if you've got a flavor that you prefer, by golly, go get it and put it in there. Okay. See, it's layered a little bit. We've got some on both sides, or there's an opening on all sides. And then we're going to put this in so that it seals it. So that all that ham and cheese just stays inside and melts and gets all nice and gooey. Okay. A little bit more hamburger. And we're going to seal the sides up. Okay. A little bit more. Have a little peak on it. I like my hamburger rare. Some people don't. We're going to put this in the oven for about 50 minutes at 350. We're going to come back, stick that in the oven. I'm going to wash my hands, and we'll get started on the squash. Come back and join us. Welcome back to Cooking with PRTC. We're going to put our meatloaf in the oven, and we preheated it to 350 degrees. I put it on the side because when we get finished with the squash, we're going to put that right in beside it, and that way you don't have to move something when it's hot. Real simple. What we're going to do is get our squash. You can get this at Breland's. You can get it over on any roadside produce stand. I just love this time of the year. Instead of trimming this off, you can get your potato peeler and just take that off, and it just works great. And you still get to have a bunch of it, and you can just take off the bruises. And all of a sudden, it's real pretty again. Of course, if you grow it yourself, you don't have to worry about this. But I cook, I don't grow. The only thing that's green in this house, stuff that's left in the refrigerator too long. Okay. And the more the skin you leave on there, of course, the more vitamins and beta carotene and all that sort of good stuff you get. But I just want it to be pretty. Now we're going to take our Sharper Images toy again. We changed the blade, so it's going to be bigger. I know there's neater things in the world, but this thing just tickles me to death. Okay. I'm going to get another bowl. Actually, I'm just going to dump this out and use this one. I have to have something to toss all these things in with. You might not think so, but we're actually saving time by doing that. And all your parts are the same size. So when you cook it, it's going to be consistent. You won't have one piece that's not as done as the other. I just love this little thing. Okay. Got 4 good-sized squash. We have 1 good-sized onion. From our good friends down the street in Georgia. Oops. And there we go. Now, Jason and I were talking about this earlier. The great thing about doing this is all of a sudden people think you know what you're doing when you cook, and they're always donating recipes. My mother, teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of garlic, had given me her recipe, teaspoon of black pepper. And this is a kicker. It's about 2 tablespoons of sage. A friend of mine in Colombia, Rhonda Metz, gave me this. And instead of having all the eggs and all the everything else in it, all you do is toss the vegetables, the spices. I'm going to use about 1/2 cup of cheese. This way you get to taste all the vegetables, and the cheese kind of complements and it doesn't overpower it. Okay. Put it in our dish. And we're going to cover this with aluminum foil and let it cook for 30 minutes. We'll put it in right there beside the meatloaf. Okay. Then, after that, we're going to take it out and uncover it, put another 1/2 cup of cheese just over the top, and let it sit for another 30 minutes. So we'll be right back. Okay, what we're going to do now is put a little cream, put a lot of cream on here. The smart thing probably would have been to toss it in there with it, but I forgot. That's why I had Jason, being the expert that he is, like, why you got the cream out, Mark? So anyway, like I said, we're going to top this, put it in the oven for about 30 minutes. Stick it right in there beside our meatloaf. Take it out in 30 minutes and put some more cheese on it. Man, that meatloaf is smelling great. Okay, this is where it gets fun. What we're going to do now is take just regular, as Jerry Clower would say, Wop biscuits, and we're going to flatten them out. Put a little flour there. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. I'm just going to flatten these out, just about as thin as you can. We have opened up a can of spinach. We have some feta cheese. And we're going to slice up an onion. That's all you do. Just flatten it out. And we're going to put all that inside the pastry dish or the pastry shell or the biscuit, whatever you want to call it. Fold it into quarters and put it in the oven and bake it. We'll make a little tzatziki sauce and you're going to love it. Okay. Slice up the onion real quick. Doesn't take a lot of onion. Use our handy dandy tool here. Okay. We drained the spinach. All it is just regular canned spinach. Drained it. Just trying to get some of that moisture out. That's even after you take the top off and let it sit. But there's a lot of moisture in here, which isn't a bad thing. But if you bake it with all the moisture in there, what it'll do is just get real soggy. If you don't mind soggy bread, leave it in there. Got our feta cheese, crumbled feta, about 4 ounces. Mix that together inside your colander. That way you can keep squeezing the spinach. I've often thought about doing this with collards. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. Just fold it up. Okay. We'll set that right there. We have our cookie sheet with parchment paper. Put that right there. And in my habit of giving credit where credit is due, I have never used parchment paper in my life. Rhonda Johns was nice enough to say, if you're doing cookies, Mark, you need to put parchment paper on there. I have no idea that she's ever cooked a cookie in her life or baked a cookie. But I use the parchment paper and it works great. As much as I hate to admit it, she was right. Okay. Nice and flat. About 2 tablespoons of spinach. Can't put too much in there. Then fold it. You can do it in quarters, you can do it in thirds, whatever. If you've got a special design you like, then just seal it if you can. If you're out at the beach one weekend, I'm telling you the truth, these biscuits are very versatile. You can do the same thing. Put a teaspoon of jelly in there and a teaspoon of cream cheese. Put it in the oven, and you got your own little pastry dish. And they're very good. Kids love them. Grown-ups are kind of happy about it too. Especially if you got some homemade jelly. Okay. The extra flour makes it look fresh. Just kidding. It keeps it from sticking. Okay. Fold it in thirds again. Pinch the sides. You can see the more you do it, the faster it gets. Okay. If you got kids in the house that like to spend time with you, this is perfect because then they get to play and they get to make a mess, get flour on their nose, good photo ops. But kids love this sort of stuff. And you can get them, actually spend some time with them. Kids aren't all bad, except when they're dirty. Okay. Depending on how many people you're having over for dinner, you know, you don't have to do it all. Okay. It also works real good with blue cheese, but the feta's good. Fold that one over, twist it a little bit. It might not be pretty, but I can tell you, they're going to taste great. All there is to it. We might stop at 6. Okay. You just can't go wrong with good spinach. If you would like, you can use fresh spinach. Just brown it in your frying pan, little butter or top it in there. And you can also put mushrooms in it. Just different flavors, but it's always good. I'm gonna put this in the oven on the bottom shelf because it only takes, just follow the directions on the can, 350 for 14 minutes. Okay. Got that in there. Now we're going to make our topping for it, which is a tzatziki sauce. We're going to finish up. We've got a little cucumber. And you can leave the skin on it if you'd like, or you can take it off, whatever makes you happy. We've got our little food processor here. There we go. Love some cucumber. Okay, cover your ears. That's all there is to it. We're going to mix that with a little bit of yogurt and some garlic. Call it a day. Hold on just a second. Don't be afraid to get your hands in there. This goes great with Greek dishes, but if you want it, especially in the summer, it's so good. Instead of something heavy like a mayonnaise, you can use this on your sandwiches, especially if you're down at the beach. If you want something light, you'll love it. Mix that, get all that good stuff in there. A little bit of our garlic salt. And a cup of yogurt. Got 2 cups here. About half of that. Okay. All we're going to do is mix that together. That's the 3 ingredients. Yogurt, cucumber, and garlic. And when we get finished with our pastry dish, we're going to top this on it. And it's just, it brings out the spinach, and the cheese is just absolutely wonderful. And it keeps for about, you know, as long as yogurt keeps. You put it in the refrigerator and cover it, it'll be good for days. And a lot less fat than mayonnaise. Okay. That's it. Well, that's good. Folks, we'll be right back and put all this together and have some lunch. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to RTC. We're getting ready to dig into our stuffed meatloaf, our squash casserole, and our pastry with the homemade tzatziki sauce. I've got my friend Blaine Fender, who's come over from St. George to help us. Blaine, chow down. Let us know what you think about it.
Looks good.
Blaine's going to join us on an episode here coming up shortly, and we're going to do some fish. But please stick around for that one. Oh man. It's the greatest thing about liking your own cooking. It's always good.
Meatloaf is very tasty.
Thank you. I've never cooked with sage before, but the sage on the squash is absolutely phenomenal. Folks, if you got any questions, contact us, but join us again next time on Cooking with PRTC. Thank you.